Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, class?
Good evening.
Okay, thank you for joining our class today. I'll, our topic for today is on recipes. We want to know the definition of recipes, the different definitions we have. After, can you kindly mute Damaris? I just wanted to know that everyone is on board before we start. We have different types of definitions of a menu. Who can tell me what you understand by the term menu? Sorry, recipe. Sorry, Dama. Do you have an idea of what a recipe means, Damaris?
Okay, can you say these are instructions or for details for making or preparing a meal?
Okay, that's a good one. I'll give you the definitions, several definitions I have uh, regarding the recipe. Recipe is a precise written formula for preparing and cooking of a menu item. Other definitions is number two. A recipe is a set of instructions that show how to prepare or make something, especially in a culinary dish. Another definition is a set of directions with a list of ingredients for making or preparing something, especially food. So those are the several definitions of a recipe. Um, we'll now go to the importance of a recipe. Why should we have a recipe, or why should we write a recipe? Meme, can you give me one reason why we should write a recipe? Or anyone who can give me a reason as to why we write recipes? Why is it important to write a recipe?
I can say it helps. I can say it helps. I can say predetermined portion yields thus more efficient cost control.
Okay, Kevin Bondo, that's a good trial, but you have some noise on your side. I don't know what the problem is, but that's a nice one. Because of time, I'll give you a few importance of having a recipe. Number one, we have recipe helps predetermine portion yields. That's more efficient in cost control. If you do recipe, you'll not have wastage. You'll know if you want to make maybe chapati, you know the amount of flour you have to, because you're going to measure the amount of salt, baking powder, and all that. So there will be no wastage. Number two, it helps standardize purchase specifications. Your chapatis the chapatis now, you'll have to, there's a way the product has its standard. They should be soft, they shouldn't be dry, and all that. So if you have a recipe and you follow what it says, you'll have the exact product or something close to the product that is needed at the end of the day. Number three, we have menu planning. The recipe assists in menu planning, particularly where nutritional data is included. Um, when you are making your chapatis, or there's a patient, somebody who needs a specific diet or a special diet, with the amount of nutrients that are needed, the recipe will help you know how to meet the needs of those customers or the sick people who need special um, uh, diets. The last one is it enhances better quality control. Just as we mentioned somewhere in number two, there will be less wastage. You'll control and the quality will be better since you'll be following the recipes and the measurements and the ingredients that are in the recipe. Those are the importance of having a recipe or making a recipe. Any question up to that? Anybody maybe who needs a clarification or has a question?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Kenwell,
I'm okay.
Griffins, Kenwell Griffins, are you in class? Are you with us? You've been silent for a while. Okay. We now see writing recipes for dishes. What the contents of a recipe? What are the contents of a recipe? And we want to see how what a recipe should contain. So the following are what should be included in a recipe or the contents of a recipe. One, we have name of the dish. If it's fried rice, that's what we mean, or boiled beef or something, you have must have the name. Then number two, we have the yield or number of portions. The beef stew or the boiled beef, whatever. Are you going to? How many people are going to be served? Is it for 5 people, for 10 people? So you need to know the number of people you're going to serve, the portions you're going to serve. The third one is a sequential list of ingredients. The recipe, as you all know, contains the ingredients. So we have to have, if it's as we let's use our usual example, chapati. You have from flour or cooking oil, maybe a little salt, little sugar, and all that in a consequential, sequential manner. Number four, the quantity of the ingredient. We need to measure if it is flour, how many grams of flour do we need to make the chapatis? If it's oil, how many milliliters do we need to make do we need to make our chapatis? The last one is the method and procedure of preparing the dish. The recipe contains how you are going to cook. If it's chapati, first you have to warm your water, and then you have to measure and sieve the flour, add it to the warm water, knead your dough, add cooking oil, and all that. So a recipe shows you the procedures on how to prepare the dish. We also have some other points like cooking time. You also need to know how long. This one does not really apply for chapati, but it can apply for things like cake. So you need to know I'm going to bake this cake for how long? Is it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and so on. Then you also need to know the temperatures. Am I going to bake my cake in 10 degrees? Which temperature? 120 and all that. You need to know. You also need to know any special equipment needed for whatever you are cooking. In this case, you are doing a cake. We have to know if there's a special equipment that we need to make it maybe have certain unique features than a normal cake. You also need to know the garnish, how you're going to decorate your cake and all that. The size maybe of the oven according to the how big or how small your cake is going to be. And then you also have service methods. How are you going to serve your cake? Is it you're going to serve it with a custard and all that? So basically, that is uh, what is in our topic for today about recipes. Where we've seen the definitions, the definition, several terms to define a recipe. We've seen importance of having a recipe, and lastly, we've seen what a recipe contains. So, any question before we end our lesson for today?
You lost your network in the middle.
Imepotea jina hapa iko.